So Richard, you're the Historic Kitchens manager, so the perfect person to tell us all about feasting at the Tudor court. And can we begin with where they would have eaten?
Well, the majority of people would have eaten here in the Great Hall or next door in the watching chamber. As well as being the place for dining, it's also the place that the staff are accounted. So the 2 meal times of the day are when the powers that be check that all of the staff that are supposed to be at work are actually at work. The people that get dispensation from eating in the hall are some of the kitchen staff who eat together at the end of their working day down in the kitchen, and people who are the guests of the court or the higher nobility who get to eat within their own private chambers.
So just 2 meals a day?
Yes, just 2 meals a day.
Wow. So presumably there were 2 big meals to keep people going?
Well, they're fairly sizable, but in actuality it seems that they don't care much about it as a meal. It's all about the finance, it's about the money. It's part of your wage for working at court.
I guess it has to be well-oiled because they're feeding, what, how many people at each sitting?
Well, they're feeding about 450 people every day, so that's 450 per meal. And we know that there are 2 sittings. This room can actually sit all 450 at once. So there's plenty of space. It's a comfortable, relaxing time, even though it's probably only about half an hour. It's just like a work canteen today. Stop your work, go and have your dinner, start back up again.
And what sort of things were people eating at either end of the social scale?
Well, the big difference is the quantity, less the quality. So the quantity at the bottom end that we know is roast beef, roast mutton, sufficient for more than 6 people to be served in one group. Beer and bread, that's their main meal on a day when meat was served. Whereas right at the top end for Henry VIII, he's being served 2 courses of 28 dishes in total.
28?
But he's not eating it all. That's a menu. It's just a physical menu that he can pick and choose from. So if he fancies fish on one day, he can pick the fish out of that particular dish.
Well, we're standing here by the top table, which is where you imagine Henry being every single mealtime. Was it quite like that?
Unfortunately not. In fact, we don't have any records of him eating in the hall at all. He would eat in private. He dined in his own private apartment.
What about the women at court? Would they have eaten here with the men?
Well, I suppose I could retort by saying, what women? The women at court are high status. There aren't women working within the menial jobs. The kitchens are staffed exclusively by men through the whole of Henry's reign. The numbers fluctuate. At the beginning of his reign, it's about 180. It rises to about 220. And it's worth noting that those 200-odd staff are part of the 450 that are being fed. So they're feeding themselves as well as everyone else. But it is exclusively male.
What about Henry's favoured guests? Can you give me some examples of the sorts of dishes they would have eaten?
Well, the commonest are the roast meats. They seem mundane and boring to us now, but in the 16th century, they're their height of culinary perfection. We need fresh meat, we need a large supply of fuel, and we need staff to turn the meat in front of the fire and to tend the fires, all of which your normal run-of-the-mill Tudor doesn't have. Pies are a very spectacular English cuisine. They're stereotypically English, despite the fact that one of the most common recipes is referred to as a pie of Paris. Large, multi-meat filled pie. They were very concerned with healthy eating. All food has a medicinal component to it, and all food is picked and chosen by the staff, the cooks and so on, to provide the most well-rounded, balanced diet as they understood it, and that's the big difference. It's as they understood it, not as we understand it.
And what sort of utensils are people using to eat with during this period?
To eat with, they're eating with their fingers. They carry a knife with them, or if they're of high enough status, a knife will be provided. They might be provided a spoon for certain dishes, but the majority of the food can be picked up with your fingers or a small piece of bread. So you might tear it off like a flatbread and pick it up and eat that way.
What about drink? There's this sort of theory, nobody's drinking fresh water, everyone's just drinking ale.
Everyone's drinking water. The reason we don't have any details about it is because water is free at point of consumption. So we have lots of evidence for the production of springs, conduits to transport water and so on. But the moment those have been built, the water itself is free. Beer, ale and wine all cost money to produce, to buy, to transport, to store, to ship and so on. So we've got lots of evidence for the alcoholic drinks that they drank, but there are thousands of references for people consuming water, for mixing water in with wine and beer as well to modify the tastes, to modify the strength.
And what about the sweet foods? I've got a bit of sweet tooth myself, so I'm particularly interested in dessert. What sort of things would they have eaten?
Well, realistically, sweet things are for the wealthy. If it's not inherently sweet within a dish, then it's something that is out of your price range. Here at court, completely different matter. The money is almost no object, but for normal people, their disposable income is almost zero. So the options to sweeten things because of that's what you fancy just don't exist. The further food comes from, the more it's going to cost, and therefore the more your status is shown. By serving exotic imported foods at his court, Henry VIII is saying, look at the power I have to be able to afford to import these things from different places.
And when Henry wanted to really put on a show, so at the very special events and entertainments at the Tudor court, what sort of things would have been served then?
Well, it's all about the expense and the extravagance. It's about the quantity, so the food increases, the choice increases across the board through the social scale, and it's about the specials that delineate the ends of courses. So we would have things that we now refer to as subtleties, quite often decorative foods that would sit on the table for you throughout a course and would then be consumed at the end of that course, or just looked at and enjoyed whilst the second course or the third course was being prepared.
Even though it is all very carefully controlled, surely there must have been leftovers. What happened to those?
The leftovers are actually intentional. It's one of the points of having so much food as a court is to give food away. It's part of your charitable Christian duty. And so food that has been broken, which is food that you've touched, eaten into, that gets thrown away. It's likely to be recycled into pig swill. But food that is unbroken, so dishes that no one has touched, that's collected up by the almonry department, and then that's issued to the poor at the gates on a regular basis.
Do we have any idea of Henry's annual food bill?
Only from the Eltham ordinances. So we know that for the year 1526, they were expecting to spend about £1,500, 16th century money, on the king alone for his meals. Now, to put that in context, if you're a normal, run-of-the-mill, skilled labourer in London, that's the equivalent of about 72 years of your meal expenditure.
Wow. He didn't stint on his food.
It's good to be the king, at least that's what they used to say anyway.